From the plains to the rolling hills, Oklahoma is a state that resonates with stories of resilience, determination, and pride. Welcome to Inside the 1581, a podcast of the Oklahoma Hospital Association. Together, we'll dive deep into the heartbeat of the great state of Oklahoma as we journey through the rich history, diverse culture, and the ever-evolving landscape within the 1,581 miles of border in our nation's 20th largest state. Each episode of Inside the 1581 will feature conversations with the many voices which help shape our state's future and our shared vision of improving health and healthcare in Oklahoma.
Welcome back to this special edition of Inside the 1581. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Rich Rasmussen, President and CEO of the Oklahoma Hospital Association, and we're here at the 2025 OHA Connect Conference. We've got together hundreds of healthcare leaders from all across the state. You know, we have a shared mission and shared vision for our state, and that is to improve health in healthcare in Oklahoma, and that's what we're doing. And as part of our Voices conversation, which we did last year, we welcome back, by popular demand, Bennett Geister, who is the President and CEO of the Oklahoma City Community Ministries with Mercy. And Bennett, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's good to be back.
Yeah, and it's such a delight with you, Bennett, because you have energy like I do, you know. And I don't know if yours is charged by caffeine. I mean, I think Alex will tell you that mine is definitely charged by caffeine, and I appreciate it. And I think maybe it's because you have how many kids?
I've got 4 kids.
Four
I
kids.
have to be energized.
4 kids. Well, there you go. Well, let's talk about that, Bennett. So you're leading Mercy's market here in Oklahoma City, and I think that includes Kingfisher and your critical access hospital surrounding. You're a father, you're a leader, you're now going to be the chairman of the board of the Oklahoma Hospital Association, and wow, let's fast track that. You were just in Tulsa like a year ago.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, maybe for folks to understand, your journey in your professional career, and then certainly coming back to Oklahoma City and where you are now with Mercy.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. Here's the 1-minute version. I started my career.
Because you only have 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
man.
the 1-minute version works.
Yeah,
right?
that's perfect.
Yeah.
I started my career with Integris. Was with Integris for almost 6 years, and awesome experience. Got to work both in Oklahoma City and then a significant amount of time in Grove. From Grove, Oklahoma, came back to Oklahoma City. 2.5 years with Community Health Systems. From Community Health Systems to Tulsa, where I worked most recently with Ardent Health, and that's, of course, the Hillcrest Healthcare System up there, where I served as CEO for Hillcrest Hospital South. And then I've been with Mercy now for 18 months. And then along that time, we've had 4 kids, and so...
Not in 18 months. No. We want to provide clarity on that one. More than 4 kids in 18 months. Okay.
Yeah, no,
all right,
that's
good,
over the 16
I have
years.
5 over a period of years.
That's
too.
right.
Okay.
That's right. Our oldest is now Baker. He's 8. Our youngest, Georgia's, a year and a half now. So it is. It's a blessing. It can be overwhelming at times, but it definitely keeps me young. And I know it keeps you young as well.
Well, and I think you're also a coach of a basketball team.
I do.
So.
I coach now Baker's basketball team this basketball season.
I heard about that. I heard about that yesterday from somebody else. I think you coach somebody else that here's one of their kids as well. So, which is awesome. You know, Bennett, when we look at our entire field today, I mean, it is accelerating so fast, and so you've seen, just in the period of time in which you've been a healthcare leader, you know, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Grove, as well. When we look at that, how do you see us continuing to evolve here over the next, let's say, the next decade? I will be retiring, consuming your services in a decade, right? So, so how do you see it? I mean, we've seen tremendous change. How do you see it continue to evolve here over this next decade? And maybe that part of what we talked about with AI today, rolls into it. But how do you see it?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Number one, there's been a lot. Both of our speakers, our present headliners, have had some great. Not only nuggets, but there's been a lot of consistency. And so when we're thinking about kind of our routine and rhythms of what we do every day, the conference has been a real blessing in that sense, Rich. But I would say, it's always easy to look back. I mean, when I started, SHOP was put into law, if you will.
And let's pause there because
Sure.
you make a good point for our listeners who may not be in the hospital field. SHOP is a special program that was created by Congress, approved by our legislature, which allows the state to use a dedicated fee that's assessed on hospital net operating revenues. That fee generates revenue that the state uses for their state match for Medicaid to draw down additional Medicaid dollars. And so I think it's important for our listeners to understand, and we referenced this a little bit in one of our other episodes, is that this fee on hospitals is used to fund Medicaid expansion in our state. So hospitals are funding Medicaid expansion and covering those 300,000 Oklahomans. And then the balance of that fee is then utilized to draw down additional funds so that we can lift the reimbursement rates for hospitals, which in our state and for that matter nationwide are historically low and below the cost of delivering services. So by doing this, the state is actually able to leverage that and increase the reimbursements so that our providers aren't left treating patients at below cost.
That's right. And that's a really important point, Rich, because everything, when we talk about funding, everything is trying to help us stay just above a break-even margin.
Right.
And so all the things that are happening right now in our space are putting our ability to provide essential services to our communities at risk. And we are first and foremost caregivers, and we serve in communities where we go to church with our family and friends and support them, and it means so much more. And so I think context is everything. SHOP, we put SHOP in place. We survived COVID. We were able to expand Medicaid through a state question. And then most recently in April of last year, our state moved to a managed Medicaid program. And so we've seen, even in my 16 years, we've seen a lot of change throughout healthcare in our state and frankly within our association. What's wild right now is just, I think what we've again heard in this conference is a lot more efforts in transparency. We have a lot of information we already publicly submit that anybody can go onto the CMS website or they can go to the Leapfrog website. They can see a host of things that we as healthcare providers already transparently publish. We are getting better at that, I think, just societally and certainly within our state. And I think secondly, Rich, is just technology enhancements, increased. You think about like robotic technology as one example.
Sure. I mean, gosh, imagine when the robotics first came out, the Da Vinci first came out, and we're like, wow, this is game changing. I think we have no clue of how this is going to continue to evolve with automation and more technology driving what we're doing.
And new doctors coming out. If you don't have a robot in many cases, it's really hard to recruit doctors because
100%.
they're so used to that now through their training programs.
I mean,
and so,
and you're right. When you have a critical access hospital that has a Da Vinci, and they do. There's no way that in some rural communities that might have to drive hours to receive surgical services, they can't do it without a robot because they can't recruit a surgeon.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think hopefully, again, lots of discussions this week around AI, but like it will be really fascinating to see how AI continues to enable us to be more transparent, to provide a more consistent solution to our patients, and frankly, to empower, because they are consumers, to empower consumers in how they choose their healthcare. And I'm excited. That's a journey we are really leaning into at Mercy. I think it's a journey we're leaning into as an association. And how do we make sure we all kind of stay together along this journey so that we do it well, and Oklahomans, regardless of where you live, are getting care consistently.
And I do appreciate, those sentiments because, I mean, when we talk about the transparency, I think it's often overlooked that, hospitals have been on this transparency journey as it relates to quality for decades.
That's right.
On pricing, for near a decade. The first pricing transparency website prior to voluntarily posting our prices came in the first Trump administration. And now the Oklahoma Hospital Association has launched Our Promise to Oklahoma, which is built on the transparency of pricing our hospitals are offering, the quality improvement that we're demonstrating publicly to our community, our commitment to serving the uninsured and underinsured, and then certainly moving forward on the community benefits that we provide across our state. And I know Mercy is very strong in what you guys are doing in the space of community benefit. Is there a story, or is there an example of something that, off script, that is you're particularly proud of? I mean, you've come into the Mercy system, and you've seen what you've done with the new Love Tower and everything else. Well, is there something you're like, wow, I am really proud of X?
Yeah, I think that from a community benefit standpoint, I am really proud of the work we're doing around the indigent and the homeless.
Okay.
And so we invest a lot of money right now into the Cardinal House. We've invested a lot of money into Casitas Caritas. It's like a housing for people that are going through transitional homelessness. And I just think the things that we're doing around homelessness, there's a secondary benefit, Rich. I think one is like, hey, that is our ministry, and
Absolutely.
the ministry of
Absolutely.
the sisters who came before us, the Sisters of Mercy, ultimately back to Catherine McCauley. That group, like, we are called to fulfill that and live that out every single day. And how we interact with the community, particularly the least of these, is really powerful and impactful. So that would be the first thing. I think there's a secondary benefit, though, and that is, look, when we are partnering with community organizations, because they are our partners, we're actually able to help get patients into the right care setting, right? So if somebody's ready to get out of a hospital, we need to get them out of our hospital, because there's so much risk between a fall, between an infection. We do these things really well, but like, hey, get you into a lower risk setting, because there's the sickest people are in hospitals. And so through community partnerships that are willing to take care of our indigent and the least of these in our communities, that's really adding a lot of value in terms of our ability to care for all of the community. Because then we've got freed up capacity to be able to take care of the next person that's in our ER, or the next person that needs to be transferred from their primary care doctor, or whatever that may be. And so we will continue to make those investments into homelessness and into the transitional care programs that unsheltered people need in order to get back on their feet.
Well, that's a really good point. And I think it ties into perhaps the biggest threat that I think our field is going to experience, and that is certainly the $6.7 billion in Medicaid cuts. And I know you've spoken quite eloquently on this. And if we look at just the Oklahoma City market where you're at, where more than 81,000 healthcare workers reside. So that's 81,000 healthcare workers. To put it in perspective for some of our listeners, we're talking about 44,000 energy workers, about 42,000 in the aerospace. So in the healthcare sector, we are almost double.
That's right.
Each of those industries are combined equal to those industries, and I think there's underappreciation for that. And I say all of that because these cuts that are coming, as they impact Mercy or OU or SSM or Integris or any other independent hospitals that rely in the Oklahoma City market, as they are drained of resources they're receiving today, and we talked a little bit about this with Corey earlier, it's going to have an impact on everyone downstream, because so many organizations depend on your philanthropy and in your leadership in the community. It's going to have an impact. How are you guys assessing and trying to prepare for that?
Well, I think, oh gosh, we could spend way more time than we probably have talking through that. I would say this. I think, let me start real high level and then we can get more concrete. I think number one is like, hey, we have to continue to engage our elected officials, community stakeholders, philanthropists, like pull these people together and make sure that we're telling our story most effectively. Like the role that community hospitals play when it comes to being an economic engine for their communities. Every rural community in this state, the school system and the hospital are the two largest employers.
Absolutely.
But too many people, stakeholders, see hospitals as, providers, frankly, healthcare as a cost, as opposed to as an economic driver. And so how do we tell our story more effectively so that they understand the role that we play in a healthy and vibrant local community? That's number one. I think number two, when it comes to what we have to, I hate to use the term rationalization, but the reality is, particularly for our standalone hospitals throughout the state, it's like, hey, they may have to reduce some services. And if they reduce services, that means people that live in their communities are going to have to come to larger markets in order to get healthcare. We don't want that. That's the complete opposite of our mission and what it is.
It also goes against quality, right?
Absolutely.
Because as you're discharged closer to home, you have the support systems, you have better outcomes. So in one sense, we may be reversing some of the trends we've been working so hard on.
We've worked so hard. Half of our counties, I believe, in the state are healthcare deserts right now when it comes to like maternity care.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's like, hey, we're trying to get more maternity services into communities that today are having to drive much longer than 30 minutes to go get access to healthcare. That is wild. We think about typically younger people and economic drivers for a local community. We need to have good women's healthcare in our rural communities. And a lot of what's happening right now is pulling away from that effort, Rich. And so, again, back to our legislative activity, but beyond that, our storytelling to make sure stakeholders know the impact that their local physicians, caregivers, or nurses in their hospitals play to supporting a local and vibrant community has to be a focus of ours moving forward. And that will be a very key focus of mine as I step into this role.
And I appreciate that, because I think you're onto something here. We look for until most recently, Oklahoma has been a rural state. Now we have more people living in our urban core than our rural communities. And so as we drain rural communities of healthcare resources, A, young people won't stay or relocate, and B, seniors will relocate because they need more robust services as they age. And so we're going to see, in my fear, we're going to see a further graying or a drying up of some of our rural communities, and that's a tragedy when we look at this. These are rural communities that are the breadbasket for America, and we're going to take them of the resources they need to remain sustainable. And I think it all comes back to healthcare in a large part.
Absolutely. I still remain optimistic. We have to be optimistic. It's like, hey, we still have wonderful opportunities. I think with any kind of funding that we do receive, we want to demonstrate as healthcare leaders that we are going to be good stewards of those funds. And it's like the parable of the talents. The more, when you're entrusted to something, if you can do something with it that brings value and benefit to the people you serve, you're given more. And I think that's the approach we need to take moving forward, is how do we continue to use our blessings to be a greater blessing to other people so that ultimately the people that we get to care for every day are blessed.
Yeah, I agree. And that is a call for, I think, all healers. I think we all look at that. So you'll be coming in, or not coming in, you are now my chair. Yeah. You're the chair of the Hospital Association. And I think you started to touch on it a little bit. Yeah. What do you want to focus in on, as the lay leader on our board? And I know you've talked a little bit about member engagement being a part of that, but where would you like to see not only the association, but our hospital field, over the course of the next 2 years while you're the board chair?
Yeah, you touched on, I think member engagement is kind of a passion of mine. And I liken it to this. It's like COVID, the pandemic. I don't know how your meetings are, Rich, but I bet over 60% of my meetings are virtual.
Right.
And that's awesome. Right. It's amazing.
With no cameras on.
That's true. There are those too.
Yes.
But it's awesome to be able to connect. When I want to talk to somebody, one of my peers that's in St. Louis, like, what a blessing that I can see them across my computer. However, the pandemic did something, and that is we got societally, I think, really comfortable in talking to one another virtually. And then you think about the phones, and we live in these things. And so what's at risk there is community and fellowship. And I think there's something to say when it talks about even any kinds of like scriptural text, like it's not good to live in isolation. It's not good to live in isolation. And so conferences, whether that's the Connect conference, the summit that we do in the summertime, it's more than I'm going to gain education. It's more than I need to go build relationships and network. That is all really important. But like at a minimum, it's like, I need to get my cup refilled. And we get our cups refilled whenever we can form human connections with other people. And so I think, how do we continue to engage our leadership teams at all of our hospitals so that regardless of your role as a leader within your organization, you can find a place where you can connect with people that are doing the same work, that are energized by you and maybe the work you're doing, so that we share ideas, so that we collectively can sharpen one another. And that's going to be, I know you and I both feel very passionately about this. That's something I really want us to work on over the next couple of years.
Well, and you're right. Community creates therapy for all of us,
really does.
And I think that's important. We have lost some of that. And I think as organizations, try to retool post-COVID, the more that we can create those opportunities, and certainly we have to create incentives for folks to be able to participate. You've now heard a couple of our keynotes. You've been in a couple of our breakout sessions. We're here in the trade show. If as we get ready to wrap up,
sure.
If you could share something that you've learned thus far, and what would be your ask to your colleagues who couldn't make it this year?
Yeah, I think the probably the biggest thing I'm wrestling with this. So the dust hasn't settled on this yet, but every speaker we've listened to so far has made a push on focus on the things you're doing well.
Right.
We as leaders, we're so focused on measuring, and we're so focused on looking at where we need to improve and what action plans are we going to put in place. And like, we focus on problems to fix rather than maybe we take some time and focus on using that time to learn from the people that are highest and most engaged in our organizations, what we do well, so that we can replicate and duplicate those efforts. And I think that's something I take away from that. What's cool is I leaned over to one of my peers yesterday when we were talking through this, and I asked them, hey, what's the way that you're connecting with your frontline caregivers in a more meaningful way? And she gave me some awesome feedback. And I think that's the value of all of us being able to get together, is there's really practical things. Sometimes it's right under our nose. Like, of course, that makes total sense. But we get so caught up in the to-dos and all the things that we have on our agendas that we don't have the opportunity, A, to refresh. That's what this conference gives us. But B, to problem solve and share ideas about how we can do what we do back in our individual organizations better. And that's what I would impress upon those that were not able to make it this year.
And it's a really good point. It's as fathers, we try to celebrate, do the high fives, the fist pumps with our kids when they do a really good job, right? You got the grade, right. And I think one of them made that example earlier today about your kid comes back, with your grades, you focus in on that's the right. D instead of celebrating the B.
Yep, that's right.
And I think in healthcare we tend to do that too. And so hopefully, coming to a Connect conference does allow us to celebrate. And we're going to have some additional announcements that'll come with our next speaker that will come this afternoon. We're blessed to have Luke Russert, who is going to tell us a story about how he dealt with the loss of his father, who was a celebrated NBC journalist. And so I think it'll be an inspirational story for us. And hopefully we'll have some exciting information about what we're doing with our foundation here at the Foundation for Healthy Oklahoma. I'm Rich Rasmussen. I'm delighted to have been spent as one of the voices in Oklahoma's hospital leadership, Bennett Geister, who's the CEO and the president of the Oklahoma City Community Ministries for Mercy. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to listen to a quick message from our friends at Forefront Healthcare, and we'll be right back with the voices here at the OHA 2025 Connect Conference.